the Kim dynasty in North Korea has given its military a formidable task, maintaining a threat posture towards its dramatically wealthier neighbor to the south, which also happens to be allied to the greatest military power on the planet. It's estimated that North Korea spends only between $6 and $10 billion annually on a defense. That amount is over 2 orders of magnitude less than the United States does. But that spending amounts to roughly 25% of North Korea's GDP, compared to between 3.5% for the United States. Given these stark disparities, the Korean People's Army's (KPA) leaders have arguably ceased planning to win a war versus the South, instead aiming to endure one. For example, the KPA has selectively invested in tactics and technology that would make such a conflict as painful as possible for South Korea, Japan and the United States. A million-man army. Though North Korea only has a population of 25 million, the Korean People's Army is amongst the largest in the world, counting around 1 million personnel. All adult males are mandatorily conscripted for 3 years of military service, and tens of thousands of women also volunteer to serve in ground, aviation and intelligence units, though conditions are reportedly brutal. There are additionally 3 to 5 million reservists in the worker-peasant Red Guard militia. Recommended, China's H-6K, the old bomber that could sink the U.S. Navy. Recommended, why an F-22 Raptor would crush an F-35 in dogfight. Recommended, air war, stealth F-22 Raptor vs. F-14 Tomcat that Iran still flies. The KPA operates according to the Maoist concept of the People's War, which advocates preparing for a lengthy struggle in which guerrilla warfare and asymmetric attacks bleed away a technologically superior foe. Furthermore, the state's Juche self-reliance ideology valorizes stoicism in the face of heavy losses, and self-sacrifice for the nation. About 70% of the KPA's ground forces are deployed within a few dozen miles of the heavily fortified Demilitarized Zone (DMZ), with South Korea organized in several echelons. 4 infantry corps of 4 divisions each man the mountainous DMZ. To the rear, 4 mechanized corps, 2 artillery corps and a single armor corps are deployed from 2 reserve echelons to counterattack any enemy breakthroughs or to spearhead offensives. There is also a rear deployed reserve of 4 infantry corps. The KPA maintains more than 4,000 tanks and 2,000 armored personnel carriers, but the former are mostly obsolete types such as T-55, Type 59 and T-62 main battle tanks and PT-76 amphibious light tanks. Dating back to the 1950s and 1960s, these would be nearly incapable of defeating South Korean K-1 Black Panther and US M1 Abrams tanks in a head-on confrontation. The KPA also almost entirely lacks more heavily armed infantry fighting vehicles. However, since the 14th century, artillery has played an important role in the cramped and mountainous terrain of the Korean peninsula. This means that the KPA has amassed over 13,000 howitzer and multiple rocket launcher artillery systems, most of which are dug into hardened artillery sites situated in caves and tunnels in the mountains along the DMZ. These include over 300 170mm Cocks and super long-range guns and various unguided heavy rocket artillery, which serve as a conventional strategic deterrent by threatening to rain sea of fire on the South Korean capital of Seoul, just 30 miles from the border. Realistically, sustaining such a bombardment would prove difficult, but so would destroying these well-fortified batteries before they kill thousands. The world's largest special forces branch, North Korea also maintains the largest special forces branch on the planet, with over 200,000 personnel. This reflects a long-time emphasis on infiltrating troops behind enemy lines, whether by submarine, hovercraft, motorboat, transport plane, American-built helicopters, underground tunnels, or even sneaking across the border on foot at night. In the event of a wider conflict, tens of thousands of operators would launch strikes behind South Korean lines, seeking to disrupt communication and supply lines, and sow panic and confusion. These operatives are trained to higher standards of marksmanship and have exhibited fanatical tendencies. On multiple failed infiltration missions, they have killed themselves and other North Koreans rather than surrender. Pages.